You ready to roll?
I'm ready.
All right, Christina, it is an honor to have you here. I will be honest, I first learned of you, as maybe many people, watching Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates. I saw you a couple of years ago, blew me away, absolutely blew me away. You are known as the shark dancer and the shark whisperer. I don't know if you have any more cool nicknames like that, but
Actually, Mother of Sharks is my favorite.
Mother of Sharks. We'll stick with that. I absolutely love it. And for those people who are just listening to this, being introduced to you, it is absolutely incredible. I am fascinated by what you do. I love your message behind it. And I'm really excited to hear about your journey today and how you got to become the mother of sharks. That's just crazy. It's crazy. I was watching more videos today before doing this, and how you put sharks to sleep. You have that, you carry them through the water. You're shaking your head. Yes. This is mind blowing. I'm so happy to get you on this. I can't wait to have this conversation. First and foremost, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Excellent. And you're located in the Bahamas, right?
Right now, yes, I'm in Freeport, Grand Bahama.
How is it down there right now?
It's very nice. It's one of those wonderful winter days. So we have when it snows up in, let's say, Boston, Washington, then the cold front pushes through. We have a rainy day, cloudy, and then we have a few days where it stays like in the high 60s.
Okay.
But the sun is out at this time. When we woke up this morning, it was like 56, 57, but then it goes up into the mid 80s,
Oh, nice
and then it
day.
cools down. So it's my favorite time of year. It's nice and dry, and it has warmth during the day, and it's cool at night. It's not like the heat and humidity of the summer.
Oh, that's
But as you
incredible.
can see, I'm in the Bahamas, so for me, inside, I'm still wearing a sweater.
Nothing wrong with being comfortable. I do love that logo. I think I've seen that logo on like a few shirts of yours. I love it. Absolutely. As a
That
graphic
is the
designer.
logo of my suits, the suits that I wear when I work with the sharks.
Oh, that's incredible.
It's,
How often do you go out there and work with the sharks?
could be nothing for a few weeks, depending on what I have on the plate. And then, like, starting yesterday, it's going to be every day for several months in a row.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
And
I don't want to go too far down this road yet. I want to like introduce people to who you are. I want to give you more clout. Go ahead and please introduce yourself and tell the people what you do.
I will take the entire podcast.
Love it.
My name is Cristina Zenato. I'm originally from Italy. I grew up in Central Africa, and I moved to the Bahamas 29 years ago following a childhood dream of becoming an underwater scuba ranger who wanted sharks for friends. In the interim of doing this, I also discovered a passion for cave exploration. And so I do both at the professional level and on the passion level. Once I fell in love with both of them, I realized that not many in the world share the same visions and passions, especially about, toothy animals and the dark underground flooded holes. And so I made my life missions to actually have more people fall in love with both of them, with then the goal of involve everyone and more into the conservation of both of them, and show how intrinsically related they are as well, because people will never think the sharks are related with caves, or caves are related, or sharks are related with our health on this planet, but both are. And so it has become this, I would call it, in Italian style, like a minestrone, this giant soup of exploration, education, and conservation, which are the three words that I use to define my life goal, my job, and who I am.
So if people are scared of it, you chase it. I imagine sharks are a big fear of many people. Caves, darkness is a big fear. Underwater is a big fear.
And
That's
add pit bulls then, because I do a lot of work with pit bull rescue.
that's great.
I work with pit bulls on the island, and change also the image of pit bulls
That's
as
great.
this vicious dog.
I love your mission. I want to get there in just a moment. But you said you were born in Italy. I'm going to Italy for the first time in my life in about a month and a half. I'm just curious, where were you born?
Excellent choice of season. I was born in the northeast, by Garda Lake, Verona. Usually people remember Verona for Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
So that's my area. It's between before the Alps and the Alps. We're like an hour and a half from the Dolomites. We're on the
Okay.
lake. We have 5 of the most world-known wineries right
Wow.
about 5 kilometers from my mom's home. So
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm flying into Milan and then we'll be going right to Venice. So probably not too far from there, right?
stop. You can stop on the way. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
actually on the way. Yes, you can stop on the way.
All right.
I would recommend you do. It's
Okay.
very pretty area.
We'll stop at the home of the mother of sharks. I cannot pass that up. Um, but yeah, so what got you so fascinated working with sharks? I think it's as a kid, I'm just thinking of when I was a kid, sharks fascinated me, but that's probably where it ended. It just, I go swim in the ocean, I have a good time, but I guess there's that kind of fear hanging around of not knowing what's in the water. Where did your fascination of sharks come from? Then what made you chase it?
I think there's 2 components into the fascination. One was I was lucky enough to grow up in an ocean family, and a family that comes from the ocean and took me to the ocean. My dad was ex-military special forces
Oh, wow.
from the Italian Navy, and so I had these beautiful stories how beautiful it was down there. But at the same time, he always said there are no monsters in the sea, only the one you make up in your head.
Mm,
So I grew up with a healthy respect more for the water and a better understanding of the animals. And one of the things they said, he says, Christina, you're not going to see sharks. They're very elusive. They don't like people. You will not be able to see them. So it was a very healthy environment that I grew up in. And then the other one was kind of a silly movie. I tracked it down a few years later, and it was a person that was able to swim with sharks. It was a 1978 movie, so it comes on the tail end of Jaws, and he swims and has sharks for friends, and he actually uses sharks to punish those people that are mean against the sharks. So there's still the gory part of the sharks biting people, but he's using the sharks to protect the sharks. And I guess a combination of both, or maybe a little bit the attraction for I can tell now, maybe the underdog, made
mm.
me think I'm going to be the one that has a sharks for friends. Maybe I wanted to be unique. I have no idea, but I really wanted to have sharks for friends and swim the oceans of the world and tell people what to do, what not to do.
Sharks for friends. That's just, I'm like blown away here. And you mentioned Jaws. One of the questions I was going to get to, I didn't know when I was going to get to it. How much did Jaws set people back when it comes to sharks and their beliefs in sharks?
That is a very you'll find me on the other side of the fence about this. I fight this every day. Jaws did set people back,
Yeah.
by all means. Jaws made people believe that there will be these bloodthirsty, conniving monsters that will try to get you any turn of the wave. Absolutely. But Jaws also inspired a lot of people of saying, hey, I never thought about sharks. I want to study more about sharks. So there's a hordes of people of that time that actually became marine biologists, shark conservationists because of Jaws. My stance is Jaws as a book from Peter Benchley and as a movie were both labeled as novel and work of fiction. So everybody keeps blaming these 2 poor guys, but it's not different than somebody writing, a book and a novel and making it a movie about aliens,
Mm,
or the Fast and the Furious. So you're going to try to jump from one skyscraper to the other because you saw it in the movie, and then when your car responds to gravity instead of going into the other skyscraper, you're going to say, oh well, the movie made me do this. I think the power of Jaws and what they did, it was really tapping into our outmost fear,
mm.
which is the one that kept our ancestors alive, which is, don't do that or you're going to get eaten alive. And so because of that, it was so powerful. But to blame a work of fiction, a novel, that is where you'll find me going, but it's a work of fiction. And
Mm.
if I have Jaws, I have the book, it says a novel on it.
Right.
So I'm kind of like on a fence. And I think 47 years later, 48 years later, we kind of like want to put it to rest and stop using it as this excuse for, well, I'm afraid of sharks because of Jaws. There's been enough information, there is enough access out there nowadays for people to go, is this true? How do sharks really work? What can I find about sharks that is not related to Jaws? It's literally on a swipe of a finger. So I think we need to stop, sitting there going, well, it's Jaws. I'm afraid of sharks because of Jaws. It's like 47 years later. That is where I say it's time to change our mindset and our attitude.
It's hard to change people's beliefs and how they grew up, and especially things when they watched as a kid. And I know we all probably see Jaws as a kid, and it just kind of sticks with us when we're like 10 years old, right?
But there's kids that do that now. They do that now. They say, well, I'm afraid of sharks because of Jaws. So where'd that come from? Obviously not from the kids, not from the education. Like I said, I sat there and I watched Jaws, and my dad said, that is fiction. Sharks don't behave like that. You will not see sharks. And there are no monsters in the sea, only the one you make up in your head. And that was my education, and that changed back then at age 7. The outlook. I was born in 1971. So I was a young kid when Jaws came out.
It just goes to tell you the environment that you're brought up in it shapes the way you think and what you believe in so much. So much.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to change. I want to change the environment that is around sharks. That's what I'm trying to do. I try to do, I'm the mother of sharks. So I kind of like maybe try to be the mother of people the same way my dad was, and say, look, this is more the reality. This is more what sharks are about. This is more what we're dealing with. And one of the biggest words that I use about sharks is sharks are vulnerable.
I think what people fear about sharks too also is like you're stepping into their world. Like the world of the underwater is obviously planet Earth, but it's just so, I don't know, it's not ground. There's no gravity. It's just so abnormal to us, and we're in their world where they're at 100% strength, right?
We have zero design to be underwater creatures, zero. And then it's really funny that you brought up gravity. There's actually studies about the fact that how we're shaped and our organs sit is actually, we know that from space. We can now sit in a neutral environment for too long because it affects our muscles, it affects our organ position. But furthermore, we can't see, right, without a mask. We can hear correctly, because when you're on the water, the sound comes from both sides at the same time, because our brain is not designed to collect speed, the sound of the speed of sound. I do apologize. The speed of sound that fast, so it doesn't have a delay. So if somebody click their fingers here, I can tell this way. Underwater is going to hit both ears at the same time. We have no thermal protection. Even in the warmest of water, after a few hours, we will suffer of hypothermia. We can't breathe. And I mean, even the best swimmer in the world is like a slug down there.
Right.
And so there's nothing in that environment that we can change. We can use ice to keep warm. We can find water in the desert. But there's nothing in the water that we can say, I'm going to use this to my advantage.
Right.
And I think that's what Jaws triggers, is we are absolutely and completely hopeless, powerless. None that sits inside here, none that fits in here, none that what we are is viable. And we don't like that. We're a very arrogant species. We don't like feeling so powerless.
Especially with something that can take your limb off.
But they don't. That's the thing, is that's a problem with shark information and media. We hear so much about that one shark bite,
right?
And it's like an echo that goes on forever. And that one shark bite, for as negative as it is, as bad as it is, as awful as it sounds, is the exception to the rule. There's millions and millions of people that are in the water every day, and the sharks are there. They just don't see them. They just don't bother them. They just do not interfere with people. And then that one bite happens. And then when that one bite happens, in the meantime of that one bite, over 60 years or 100 years, like as recently happened in some parts of the world, and I don't want to mention because I don't want people to look at it, in the same time, millions of people died of something else. There's one bite advertised in the world in one area that hasn't had bites in 60 years. And then 6,000 people die per year of asthma attack in the United States alone. They did a research. They said they did a research. They basically asked people, what are the most lethal events in people's lives? And it was asthma, tornadoes, earthquakes, and the last one was something like drowning. And people picked earthquakes and tornadoes, where asthma and drowning had like 10 times the numbers, 6,000 versus 475 for tornadoes. Why? Because we don't hear every day on TV, oh, 10 people today died of asthma attack. 16 people died in a car crash across the United States, which I'm pretty sure is more than that. And so our numbers, our projections are incorrect. They're imbalanced.
Oh,
because we give so much heightened attention to that one event.
Oh, yeah.
And so we can really comprehend numbers. And our brain is not designed to really comprehend numbers. If I said one person in 11 million people is accidentally bitten by a shark, it just, our brain goes, yeah, but it was bitten.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, I don't know why I was thinking about this, but like if 99 people out of 100 said I was good looking, but one person said I was ugly, like that one person would stick with me forever, right? It's one of those
Correct.
things where it's like the negative or like the shock factor of something will just completely stick with you forever. It is funny how our minds work. I want to get back to your story here and like take me back to the first time you swam with sharks and what that experience was like and when that was.
It was my first open water dive on my certification course, for which I traveled to the Bahamas because none of the destinations I picked from Italy to go and become a certified diver were available. So they said, oh, we have this a special for the Bahamas. I was just like, the Bahamas? Because yeah, it's a honeymoon destination. You can go there and we have a discounted place on the plane. I'm thinking, who missed their wedding? And I landed here. I did my open water course. I jumped in the water and it was exactly where I'm diving now. And there was these Caribbean Reef sharks swimming around. And it was my first ever time seeing sharks. The time that my dad said it's very rare to see sharks. There was a dozen of them. So I surfed. I was just like, you have sharks? And the reactions of the people, the divers around me, the staff, the crew, they're kind of like, of course we have sharks, dummy. We have plenty of sharks in the Bahamas. It's really cool to swim with sharks. And so I was 22 and I was like, well, what can I do? And they said, well, you can fly back home, work your job, and then make more money and take your next vacation. I was like, and I speak 5 languages. So where I was staying, they found out I was coming from the hotel business background and I spoke 5 languages. And I said, we need someone to work the front desk who can relay English to French, Germans, Italians. I was like, so I did an interview in a bathing suit and sarong and bare feet because I was on vacation. And the lady to this day, she's a friend of mine. She said, when can you come back? And I was like, I have to finish my vacation and I need to go home and close a couple of things, boyfriend, job,
Adios.
car. And I came back here. I came back here with the intent of being here for a year, get diving out of my system, go back, resume my career into the hotel management and industry. And 29 years later, I'm still working on getting the diving out of my system.
You're in the Diving Hall of Fame, right? Did I see that properly?
That's correct. It was inducted in 2011 in the Women
Congrats.
Divers Hall of Fame.
So cool.
The recognition for the work, especially that I've done in conservation and education here in the Bahamas and in the world, both on the shark level, the exploration of caves, and also educated like Bahamian children, teenagers in scuba diving, all
Amazing.
the way to instructors. So
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And so when you first dove, there was just sharks that around you. Was there any fear whatsoever, or were you just like, I was made to do this?
I don't know if I said I was made to do this. Honestly, I have to say some of the girls or young men that I host, because we host a lot of scholars and students, They come in, they're so determined and so focused. And I don't know if it's internet. At 22, I was more like, "Oh, I just want to come back and die with sharks. I just want to be here and die with sharks." It was more like, let me do it, and que sera, sera.
Mm.
And then as I was here, I started building it. But at first, I have to admit, and I tell these people, it was all about me and the sharks and spending time with the sharks. When then I realized that people did not share the same perception, the same appreciation, the same love, then I became concerned, because then we start having pressure from outside world. It's like, oh, we want to come and fish the sharks in the Bahamas. We want to do this. The sharks are bad. And that is when I was just like, well, if I want to keep doing what I do with these creatures that I love so much, I need to make sure that other people understand them, appreciate them, and then also we need to protect them. And so in 2009, I started a petition to ask the Bahamian government to protect the sharks in the Bahamas. And it doesn't sound like much now, but 2009 was a high number. I collected 25,000 signatures.
Wow.
And then together with the Bahama National Trust and the Pew organization, they took the lead and pushed forward. In 2011, the Bahamas passed and legislations that protects the sharks all over the Bahamian waters. One of the best comprehensive legislations ever, has no loopholes of any kind. So
That's amazing. Is that what you're most proud of? What would you say you're most proud of all your accomplishments?
there's a few, I think, from that. Yes, tick the box. Obviously have the sharks protected. The other one has been the expansion of some natural areas, marine protected areas, through the cave exploration and mapping work that I've been doing. And I would say the third one, which is not third in order, is just the three of them are at the same level, is that one takes a few years, is when the Bahamian kids, and forgive me for calling them kids, some of them are in their 30s, but they come back and they send me messages. And I said, thank you for teaching me this. I am now doing this.
That's
I am
awesome.
now doing that. I have created a task force that actually monitors shark fin contraband through the Bahamas. I am a professor who's teaching marine biology. I am teaching scuba. I'm like a mother of sharks and a mother of a multitude of kids, I hope, that are continuing this ripple effect. And I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely. You've probably made an impact on so many people's lives, and that's going to carry on for generations and generations because of you. How cool
I
is
hope
that?
so. It's
Yeah.
very cool. It's not always been easy, because some of the training that I had to do, I had to be tough. I
Mm,
had to be the tough one.
yeah.
And so at close component, they were kind of like, well, she's a little bit of a, and then a few years later, as they grow and they enter the world, then they come back. So
Mm.
that one is a tough one, because in the beginning they're kind of like, they don't like me, but they come back going, I understand now why you were training me like that, why you wanted me to be this way. I do appreciate, like the dangers related with scuba diving and
Yeah.
what you did for us. So those
There's a
are the
lot of,
three that I would say I'm very proud of.
that's incredible. Yeah. There's a lot of things you realize later in life that you're appreciative for, of how you were taught or spoken to, or something like super serious. And I want to know, for people listening to this, they, at some point, go to your website, go to your Instagram, watch some of these videos. They're, as I'm talking about, as you pet them, as you touch them, as you basically put them to sleep. Like it is absolutely insane. At what point did you start reaching out, touching them, having interactions with them, and then start kind of like becoming the shark whisperer, if you will?
Well, almost from the beginning.
Wow.
And because of my mentor, Ben Rose, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, he is the one that started this interaction with sharks. And I came in right at the beginning of that. And I was just like, you also do interaction with the animals. And so it was very experimental. But
You better get it right.
but we basically, I started right after with Ben, and then Ben said after a year that I was doing that, he says, you have a special gift for it. There's something about you and the sharks, because he was teaching other people. He says that it's unique and is different, and in circumstances and choices and a very tough choices sometimes, I ended up remaining here and spending more and more time with the sharks. And I built what I call a relationship. A relationship is not, I usually make an example. You can't come out of a speed dating and go, I'm in a relationship. That is a speed
people
date.
probably do.
Right. But a relationship is actually built over time.
Right.
And with spending time with each other and understanding each other's quirks and, you know, what works, what doesn't work. And basically that's what I ended up doing with the sharks. I kept something that I call dive site fidelity that worked really good for the sharks and the cave exploration. Dive site fidelity is I stayed here when maybe the tide get going, when there was not the correct job or not the correct money, but I had these sharks in these caves to keep me here. And that was my motivation to stay. And through that relationship is what you see right now. You know, a lot of people ask me, oh, how do I get to do what you do? And my answer is usually start.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, well, you need to tell them what they need to study, what was your budget, what sponsorship you received. And I'm like, none. I just started and I went one direction thanks to my languages because I had this opportunity, which that opportunity is no longer there. And then I decided to expand horizontally. I started learning about scuba diving, diving physiology, cave diving, geology, hydrology, shark, marine biology. Oh, what else am I missing? The technical stuff. And I volunteered. I went on, I paid my own money to go on expeditions. I traveled the world to meet other people that work with sharks. And I just put all of that in this cauldron and made my own thinking and my own opinion. So what comes out now, what I talk about, comes from all these places where I've been, maybe other people, other shark whisperers I talked to, other encounters I've had. So my thing is start. There might be a little bit of a path. Understand that the path might be interrupted, destroyed, demolished. Carve your own path. Come up with your own thing. There's just so much more available out there in terms, for example, scholarship, training grants, and supportive methods. But I think each one has a different unique position and role. And so I try to encourage people to do that, but I can't say, you know, just follow my path. It's no longer there. I walked it and behind me, the rainforest, it took it over again.
Yeah, everyone's path is different. Yours is super unique. And that's one of the reasons, you know, I wanted to have you on the pursuit of happiness, not just because I'm fascinated. It's because I love talking to people who actually pursue their happiness and their passions. And you just started. I absolutely love that because that's half the battle more than, you know, the majority of the time is just getting started or paralysis by analysis, or I don't know what to do and I'm stuck and nobody makes a move. Where
no, and they're waiting. The other, and I've done some mistakes in my life. I mean, it's not that I was just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to do this. Work out. Sometimes I actually waited too long. I was like, I need to wait for this to be right. I need to wait for that to be right. And I need to wait for this to be right. And then life just went boop.
Yep.
And I went off the cliff. And I went off the cliff. And as I went off the cliff, I was just kind of like, hey, this is working. So one of the lessons I learned, everything to be lined up. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. A lot of people email me and they said, oh, when I'm retired, when I have my funds, when I sell my house, when. It's like, no, start. Do one little thing towards that, even if it's not dropping everything at once, but you have to start. And the other one is showing up is not enough. You have to stay. My rule, what I do is I wake up, and for, let's say, 80% of my time, I wake up and my day is, I can't wait for this day. I am so looking forward to literally go to work, because it is work. People think, oh, we're on vacation. No, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of mental and physical work, but I can't wait to. I enjoy being with this person. If 80% of the time I have that feeling, that is where happiness is. We cannot be happy 100% of the time, because if we were happy 100% of the time, we would not appreciate happiness. So on that 20%, I usually tell people, you know, I sit on the couch, I feed my poor misery me some tea and cookies. I let it stew over a little bit, and then I go over again. We have our ups and downs, but if 80%, 70%,
Oh, it's
70% is a
wonderful.
good percentage. Mine is 80 most of the time. You find that is, yes, the headaches, the communication, the frustration, the living on the island, this setback, that setback are worth this one day. And for me is one day makes up, one day on the bow of the boat with the wind in my face and the salt and everything makes up for 5 days of negative. So I also have that.
That's
I
incredible.
love it.
That's absolutely incredible. Wow. What is it about you that became the mother of sharks? I know you said there was other people that tried it and were doing it. They just weren't as good as you. They had this magic touch. Was it something physical? Was it something that you emit? Is it something that the sharks can sense? Do you know what it is?
I don't. And I had people that I taught to do, like they come down with me and I teach them to do this. And they say, when you enter the water, the sharks behave in a different way when you are there than when I'm there. I think is I've never been afraid of them.
Hmm.
I never go in the water with a shark and have the little reserve. A lot of people love sharks, but still have the little reserve. My
Right.
mind is clear. And honestly, when I see them, to me, they're literally like my kids, my puppies. And I shouldn't say that because I don't want to compare them to dogs, but surrounded by them, I'm standing there just like, hey, hi, so nice to see you. And that is all I feel. And so maybe it's an energy output. It could be hormonal. So the calmness that I have exude a certain level of hormones, my heartbeat, my brain waves, and all of that together has brought up a little bit of a better connection. But I don't know, maybe it's like the same thing. I look at them as individuals.
Mhm.
And I see them as individuals. That's the reason why I give them names. That's the reason why I bring them up to the surface with their unique stories. And I say, grandma is like this, hook is like that, crook is like that, half-baked behaves like this, because they are so different and unique as individuals. And is one of the things that I do. I give them names that people can relate to when they see them immediately. I give them behaviors. I try to explain to people who is who so that you can make that connection.
Now, if I were to go dive with you, like, would they be able to tell like who you are compared to me? I know you do you have the chainmail on and stuff? Like,
Yeah.
can they sense that?
Yes, so I do a course, both the experience and a course where you certified diver can come next to me in chainmail,
I kind of
next
want
to
to
me in
do that.
chainmail,
I really
and
do.
you can actually come and I have a methodology. I have either 1 dive, 2 dives experience, up to 4 dives course or more if you want. I had someone that signed up for 5 days and they want to do 10 dives with the sharks, and you build up into understanding where we start, how we interact, how we're going to deal with the sharks. And obviously there's a lot of talking about sharks, different species, behaviors, the whole 9 yards. But in the beginning especially, it's really interesting. I actually can be standing next to the person shoulder to shoulder, and the sharks will come in and I tell the person, you reach out and pet them right on the top of the head as they come in front of you. And if the person is very nervous or very agitated, the sharks, we're shoulder to shoulder, we're holding hands. The sharks will move far away enough so that the person cannot touch them and just come up to me. I have that on many videos.
I
And
would
I have,
imagine most people are nervous.
yes, they're a little bit, they're excited, happy, nervous, a little bit of that taran, taran, taran goes on the back of their mind because unfortunately somebody put it there. So the first time the sharks swim towards them, they're like, is it going to what? No, it didn't bite me. Oh, okay. And so it goes,
Okay.
but yes, they
Yeah.
can tell the difference. My dogs, listen, and that is the part I try to bring up to make people understand. I have 3 dogs,
So do I. I get
totally
it.
3 different personalities. I have the biggest one is like a bear in hibernation, is the calmest, is just sits there. The tiny one has a Napoleon syndrome and he has the energy of a rubber ball. And then I have a pit bull. I used to have 2 pit bulls, but which is like a cuddle monster.
Hmm.
But when I come up the stairs versus when my next door neighbor come up the stairs, they know it's us. So they have a certain reaction. Should a handyman come up, let's say we call someone, hey, my cable broke, can you come and visit? And so let's say a stranger walks up the stairs. They're in front of that door in a different body language and behavior than if I'm coming up the stairs or my next door neighbor coming up the stairs. So she's obviously part of their world and is fine. They go on high alert immediately. They don't see the person, but they can hear the steps. So if an animal here on land can do that, and let's bring it to us. You tell me that a blind person can now recognize someone from their voice, from their movement, from their smell. We limit humankind as well as we limit animals for what our parameters, instead of trying to go into the humankind and the animals, what are their parameters. So people go, you have the chainmail on and the mask and the tank, how do they recognize you? Smell, hormones, scent, heartbeat, brain waves, how I move through the water.
Wow. Let's talk about that, about the intelligence of sharks and perhaps some attributes that they have that maybe many of us are unaware of. Because it was about a year ago, I talked to a dolphin trainer on here, and she was talking about like the echo sensing, echolocation.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. What are like some attributes that sharks have that maybe we're just not sure of?
Well, here's a funny thing. There's a lady, she's no longer with us, but Dr. Eugenie Clark, she also a member of the Women That Were Hall of Fame, who studied sharks in 1955, 1957. Wow. And she published papers about sharks' memories, sharks' connectivity. They were able to connect. If you push the yellow button, when I ring the bell, you receive a food. Now I just ring the bell and you just push the yellow button. Now I just ring the bell and they just show up. And so the capability of retaining, of memory, of connection, and also of communication with others. So she published these things in the 1950s.
Wow.
She was the lady of sharks. So she was an amazing lady. I was very fortunate to have a few years with her. But what sharks have is our five senses. So smell, touch, hearing, sight, and taste. And then they have two more. They have the electromagnetic field sensors around their head, so they can feel vibrations through the water, electric impulses in a certain way, heartbeats, which is part of that. And then they have a lateral line, which actually detects movement. So they're capable of detecting body movement through the water. Let's say I'm swimming and I'm doing this and I'm creating these waves. These waves hit the side of the shark, and the shark is able to detect that. So those are some of their capabilities. So 7 senses, we have 5. Each shark is different. Each species is different. We have sharks in all the oceans of the world, with the exception of the Antarctic Ocean. But as in the world of Dr. Sylvia Earle, she said, we haven't discovered sharks in the Antarctic yet. We have not known many things about the Arctic. So we have Greenland sharks, why we cannot have Antarctic sharks. So eventually maybe we'll find the species there. Maybe it's a tiny little one. We forget the sharks can be as big as the size of a pen. Invite your listeners to Google the dwarf lantern shark. Smallest shark in the world. Or to Google the whale shark, the biggest fish in the world. Not the biggest marine animal, the biggest fish in the world is a whale shark. And so there are sharks that live in the abyss. There are sharks that live by the shoreline. The sharks that go between saltwater and freshwater. The sharks that are migratory. There are sharks that are actually stationary. And they live in all different parts of the ocean columns, all the ocean spectrums. So like I said, some feed on plankton, so some feed on seals, so some feed on tuna, some feed on crustaceans and mollusks. Some feed on other sharks sometimes.
Wow. Okay. I got a lot of questions. So I want to go back to the senses real quick. So you said like the electromagnetic, like it's like around their head. It's only their head. It's not their tails
It's
or the.
within, no, it's within their head. If you were to look at diagram and you imagine the snout of a shark, it will be from the snout underneath. It looks like human pores and large human
Okay.
pores.
Okay.
And then it goes around the eyes into the areas here, almost right before the gill slits usually. It's almost like a web. Imagine they're wearing like a net of these little, and they're called ampullae of Lorenzini.
Okay.
There are jelly-filled caps that are directly connected to neuroreceptors that send a signal directly to the brain.
Wow. And
Sorry, nerve and yes.
from what I watched on that show with Josh Gates, like it seems like you kind of infiltrated that, right? And you kind of like you use that somehow, some way to pet them or calm them down, or
That's a good question. And that's one of the people that says, all you have to do is rub their nose and they'll go to sleep. So there's manic people out there rubbing the nose of sharks. And I'm kind of like, if that were to be true, then I should be able to put to sleep all of my sharks.
yeah.
But I only have specific individuals that elect to come into my lap and allow me to pet them. If that was be true, that is a chainmail, then I could go around the world and touch any shark with a chainmail and they should go to sleep, but they don't. I do believe the chainmail is the barrier that drops the barrier between the sharks and I, is what you would call the car seatbelt, right? You buckle the seatbelt in, not expecting to crash your car every time you drive it. Otherwise, very expensive kind of driving. And the chainmail is the same, but it's protect myself to protect them in that interactive moment. I don't wear the chainmail if I'm going swimming normally without the interaction, without
Right.
any interaction. But I disagree that is only the ampullae, as it's only the chainmail, because I have people standing next to me. I've trained hundreds of people doing this experience with me, and some can never do it. Some can never put a shark to sleep. Some, they have a shark grandma that will just swim up to them and go, hey. And then they don't recognize that. They usually push her away. But I think it's a mix between the person, the shark, and the energy that flows between the two.
Okay.
It's not just, oh, put the chainmail on, rub somebody's snout, and they're going to go to sleep. It does not happen like that. I have a girl, Hook. She's been on a dive site for 11 years. She's named after her dorsal fin at the bottom is kind of like, instead of being straight, is like this. So it's kind of hooked. And 11 years, super gentle. She's 8'11". She's like beautiful, very nice, luxurious, big Caribbean reef shark. And she'll come in and put her nose into my chest, put her nose into my thighs. And as soon as she starts going into sleep, she's like, nope, I tricked you. And in 11 years, she never once allowed herself to sink all the way down to the ocean floor and settle, ever. She'll come in, start sliding, I'm gone. And every time she tricks me, I'm like, oh, this is the time. No.
Do they ever migrate? Like, is it the same group of sharks every time you go out there? Is there...
It's the same group of sharks. Yes,
It is?
they rotate, generationally rotate. Unfortunately, they only live 15 to 18 years. So already gone through a generational change, and we're going through partially one right now, which is heartbreaking because obviously as the older girls start disappearing, it's not that I have a closure. I don't know where they go, but they start, there's a specific things, sharks that are aging, become almost like us. They become more gaunt, so they start showing like very, very sunken sides of the skull. They start showing all the cartilaginous structure. They're very thin in the bottom, almost like shriveled, as if they're hesitating. And then shortly, 2-3 months after they start showing those signs, they disappear.
Wow.
I've seen this long enough to say, and I have enough record and data log to say, well, this girl was here for 13 years. So most likely she was already 15, 16, because they don't come as pups. They come a little bit older. She's at the tail end, and irreversibly they disappear. And then I kind of wait and hope, and then I count the weeks and the months.
Are you ever surprised, like pleasantly surprised, like welcome back? I wasn't expecting that.
Few years back, I was pleasantly surprised by a girl coming back called Stumpy. But then Stumpy now is gone, and she was showing she had been there for 5 or 6 years, then she disappeared, and then 2 years later she showed up, and then she's been here for now would have been a total of 13 years, including the 2 that she was gone. And so she disappeared last summer, and she was showing the shriveling away. But she's pleasantly surprised me the first time, so it was a little bonus, a little gift.
I can imagine. Do you get emotional when it comes to that, and they just disappear? Do you have a really hard time, like a mourning process?
I get emotional when I start seeing them getting skinny, because I know what it means, right? And in a certain way, it's easier with the dog. You have a closure. You can take them. You can be with them as they cross the rainbow bridge. And with the sharks, it's just like there's a little piece of you that goes every time there's one of them that comes in from a distance. So I can recognize how they swim. And there's a new one that kind of like swims. She tricks me every time. She swims like Stumpy. And so she comes over the reef from a distance. There's a little bit of haze, and I'm like, it's not Stumpy. But,
how often do you get a new one?
Right now we had a turnover of about 5 new ones. We usually wait about 6 months when the new one comes in. We immediately take pictures and ID them and say, okay, this is Floppy and this is Notch or whatever their names are. And then say, okay, Floppy was again here today and Floppy was again here today. So we start taking notes how long she's there for, and if they have a presence of about 6 months, then we're like, okay, Floppy seems to find this place resident, because some sharks come through, you see the new girl, and then you're like, I haven't seen her again. Then she'll come back maybe a few weeks later, but it's not constant, so I don't consider her like staying there. It's primarily girls, so that is the mark that we use for them to be considered resident. They're not migratory by nature. They're not like tiger sharks or hammerheads. So they're here year round. They only disappear during the mating season.
Do you ever tag them? Has that ever been under consideration, or?
I don't need to. I can visually recognize them, and I just do the log by looking at them visually. Tag is used. I mean, we would love to do some satellite tagging in order to figure it out, movements and other. We have a couple of projects in the making. We're having issues right now with permates. The Bahamas is going through a big issue with permates, not just us, but from a logging the presence of the sharks and their behavior on the site. All I do is visually. I don't need to tag them. I would like to tag them for other reasons and not just visual. It will be more like a tracking tag.
That's what I'm thinking. I feel like your animals or your pets, I'd want to know that they're okay. Honestly.
Yes, I would like to have those tags, but obviously then it brings in, financial and like I said, permits at this point. So we're a little bit standing by with that part of the research.
So you say you work with Caribbean reef sharks a lot. I want to get into that just a moment, but I'm just thinking, like, so you're down the water with your sharks. Is there ever like any intruders that come by, any sharks that shouldn't be there?
Yes. So naturally, most of the time we have Caribbean reef sharks and nurse sharks. And if you ask anyone that works with sharks, they'll tell you the nurse sharks are like the pigeons of the sea. They're just like the pestiferous animal. I mean, they're pesky as pesky can be. So they always come, no matter the species. Occasionally we've had tigers cruising in or great hammerheads. Sometimes we have the sharp nose, the Atlantic sharp nose, which is not very recognizable in difference from the Caribbean reef shark. And once or twice on this side we had the lemons. But in general is Caribbean and nurse. In other locations, you may have like Tiger Beach off Grand Bahama. It's an area where there's a gathering of tiger sharks, and then they'll mingle with bulls, Caribbean, lemons, all on the same site. But the dive is interactive primarily with the tigers, not with the other ones. So I don't go out there doing what I do here.
I was going to say, you got the guts to put those to sleep?
No. And I'm a firm believer in one size does not fit all. So what we do with one animal, it shouldn't just be done with another just because we've done it with this one. I do believe there's different ways of interacting, different ways of organizing dives, different ways of even setting up the people that are coming on the dive, and basically relationing ourselves with the animals depending on the species. and their behavior and where they live and where we are. Are we over the abyss? Are we on a sandy flat bottom? Are we in crystal clear water? Are we in a murky water? Are we dealing with tigers? Are we dealing with Caribbean? And it's not that one is more dangerous than the other, but it's just each one needs to be handled differently. The same way you ride the bicycle differently if you're in a park with just bicycle, or if you're about to cross a 5-lane highway, or if there's a trucks coming, you'll relate yourself to the traffic differently. And that's how I try to put it with working with sharks.
Now, I know you said it's not that they're more dangerous, and I remember watching one of your Instagram videos, and it's not also that they're more aggressive, right? So what is it? How do you want to label them when it comes to like a tiger, a bull, or a great white or whatever? Like what is the difference? What's the level of what adjective is it?
They're different.
Yeah.
And you actually, I have friends that work a lot with tigers, and they don't like working with the Caribbean because they find the Caribbean very intrusive. They're like in your face and they're just zipping. They really touch you, where the tigers doesn't like to touch, doesn't like to be touched. So you go to touch a tiger and they're like, don't touch me. So I don't think there's a more aggressive. I don't like that word. I would say some sharks might be more intense. And by intense, I mean it's in their nature to investigate, for example, a movement, or to investigate a presence more intensely than another shark, because it's dictated by their circumstances. I'll give you an example. One of the most intense sharks I find out there are the oceanic whitetips. If there's sharks that is very intense to interact with or to be in the water with, that you have to be on your six, is the oceanic whitetip. And the reason why is they're pelagic sharks. So they're out in the blue abyss. They receive a few far and between. So their nature is, it blinks, I will check it out. It doesn't mean they're going to come in trying to bite. They're coming in to investigate. But because they're coming in on anything that moves, because it comes a few far in between, is a kind of shark. And when we're in the water with them, you need to have a different level of attention. When I'm down with the Caribbean Reef sharks and I'm on a regular dive swimming with my camera, the sharks can come up behind my head, over my head, doing this. I do not have the same level of attention, because I'm looking at the scavenger. I'm looking at a shark that actually eat dying, decaying, injured kind of marine life. So if there's a injured fish, if there's a sick animal, that's what these kind of guys go for. So I'm not gonna be interested at all in me swimming around down there or on the surface for any reason. So the level at which the animals work is what makes me dictate this is how you're going to enter their world and interact with their world. Because remember, we discussed that, you said that it's their world.
Right.
So when you come into my home, you kind of like have to adapt a little bit about the rules of my home.
I'm trying to think, do they have any sense at all if you're looking at them, if they're coming from behind? They do. Really?
Yeah, if you turn, you look at them, they're like, oh. Yeah, you look at them, you look in the eye. Tiger sharks, you look at them in the eye and they're kind of like, okay, you see me. It's really funny. A lot of animals, they tell you, there's land animals where they tell you, do not look the animal in the, like I grew up in the rainforest. You do not look a silverback in the eyes.
I'm sure.
You do not look at, that's my dad taught me. We had silverbacks coming through the camp because we're in the middle of the rainforest. You do not look, you submit. Sharks is the opposite. You look at me in the eyes, says, I see you. Okay, I see you too.
Wow. How good is their sight? I mean, all I can compare it to is when I get into water, you can't see jack, right? You can only see so far in front of you. How much better is their eyesight underwater than ours?
Well, they're designed to be underwater, but here we go back to this, there's 500 species of sharks. So the vision of sharks is very different. In general, they're designed to see in the darkness because they have a tapetum lucidum, which is a coating in the back of the eye, which reflects light. All sharks have rod cells, so they're capable of detecting movement as well as contrast. So low light, high contrast between white and black. But some sharks live in the darkness, so they have no capabilities of recognizing colors. Dr. Mickey McComb-Cobbs actually figured out that some sharks that live in a colorful reef have actually some cone cells. Cone cells allows you to see colors, right? Now, they're obviously not going to be able to recognize a fuchsia from magenta. Not that you would be able to recognize it either. It's not in your genetic code. They don't need that. But they're capable of recognizing a certain spectrum of colors because they live in a colorful environment with light. A lot of pelagic sharks apparently see the world in blue. So each vision is different. One of the things that you hear about sharks, when people say, oh, don't go swimming in murky, dusk, dawn, bad visibility, one of the things is not that the sharks have bad vision. We're talking about literally bad visibility. So you can have 20/20, but if you're driving in a snow blizzard, if you're driving in a fog, you're only going to be able to see as far as a fog allows you to see.
Right.
Doesn't make your eyes bad. So if a shark is swimming in murky water and detects a movement or a presence or something that might trigger his interest, her interest, they have to come much closer to investigate it. So it's not about bad vision. It's just about circumstances. Where are you? What are you doing? Which kind of species live there? My sharks change behavior from one day to the other. I've done a program in which I talked about they actually become super agitated as the hurricanes come towards the island. They look like us provisioning for, I don't know, it reminds me of those people that provision with toilet paper during COVID. They become very heightened 4 or 5 days out as the major hurricanes push towards the island. These animals change their energy. And why not? They have a lateral line. So as the barometric pressure is dropping over the surface of the water. And so they must feel it on the water in a certain level of dropping. And that evolutionary wise must tell them, hey, something big is coming. We know this. The birds stop flying. The frigate birds comes back to shore. They almost stop singing the day before the hurricane. They do stop singing the day before the hurricane.
Have you noticed as climate change becomes more and more of a thing, if you will, more and more of a topic, have you noticed any behavioral differences since you've started diving with sharks?
Not these are shark specifics, but I hear stories around the world. The sharks are changing. They are changing something that have been done for millennia, and that is worrisome. Sharks are moving, or sharks are disappearing. Other animals are moving in. Their food is moving, so they're following the food. The water is warming up. The food is moving further where the warm water is, so are the sharks following the water. So all of a sudden you hear about sharks around coastlines that were notoriously not shark territory. That I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot. I've seen it a lot. I contact through the worlds where the anthropogenic pressure has changed the shark behavior in a way that our ancestors didn't do. It's just more, I would say, from the Industrial Revolution on. So yes, there's definitely changes, and there's scary changes, because we're talking about an animal that is older than trees. We're talking about an animal that's been 450 million years. I'm talking about an animal that survived 5 mass extinctions. When we can, in a lifetime of a human being, detect the change in behavior of a species that's millions and millions of years old, to me is worrisome. Can be directly connected. Then you have the naysayer. Oh, you don't have the proof. You don't have this. You don't have that. It sometimes is, I think, empirical observation is better than a 2 weeks paper. Is if you have someone that has lived on a fisher that tells you for 50 years, this is what I observed. Now all of a sudden, this is no longer happening. That is a lot of data.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking, like, you live in the Bahamas too. Like all the hurricanes that come through your way, and imagine, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, I've only been alive for 40 years, but it seems like every year more and more hurricanes are coming through. It's like
more. When I first moved here, hurricanes was like, hurricane is coming, let's buy some chips and a soda and hunker together in the living room.
Right.
Since, I mean, the first one, the most destructive one, and it's been progressively worse, it was 2004 with Hurricane Francis, and then Jeannie that followed the same year. Wilma was 2005. We had Irma, we had Sandy 2012, Matthew 2016, Hurricane Force 5 plus, Dorian 3 years later, Hurricane Force 5 plus, flooded 75% of this island.
Mm.
So more often, more powerful. Definitely. The first 10 years here, I was just, hurricane was like a reason why you stayed home for 24 hours.
Right. Wow.
Now it's you should see the preparation, and luckily I prepared the way I prepared for Dorian, and it was not even enough. We were without fresh drinking water coming out of the tub for 2.5 years of following the storm.
Holy crap.
Came over the island, went through the island water table. We have a freshwater lens, displaced the water lens, and shortly after the hurricane, we had almost 20,000 ppm coming out of the tub. We still at 1,000 now, and it's a through reverse osmosis. So we still don't have water that you can drink out of the tub.
Oh my God. Wow. That's a shame. It's terrible.
It is.
But not to go too far down that road, I want to ask a question that just randomly came up because you said prehistoric. Is the megalodon real? Is that a real thing?
It was a real shark. It was a real shark. It is extinct.
Right.
There's scientific proof that it is extinct. There's many reasons to believe it is extinct, including the lack of food, the presence in the water, where the fossils have been found. So the megalodon did exist, though, as a shark. It was, let's say, oversized great white, basically, and it did extinct, though.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
no, it doesn't exist, no matter what people make you try to believe.
I gotta ask a few more questions. I appreciate your generous time here. So when you go out, I'm actually really super interested in doing this with you, honestly. So when you go out on a boat, like when are you leaving? How far is this trip out there? And then how long are you underwater? Give me like a normal day.
So normal. I don't really have a regular day. My days are very unique, but usually by 8:30 we board the boat. It's a 15 minutes boat ride. It's the closest dive site that we have. It's in 45 feet of water on a nice sandy bottom in the Bahamas with clear water. And we usually tend to do a couple of dives of about an hour each, with what it's called the surface interval in between the two dives to respect scuba diving rules. I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not sure you're certified or.
I'm not certified, but I kind of want to be now.
So in between dives, you have to wait, because when you're down there, you absorb some of what we call inert gas, the nitrogen that is in the air.
Okay.
Absorbs into your bloodstream, and coming up, it turns up in forms of bubbles. And so there's a threshold at which the body is fine. So in between dives, you sit on the surface, let some of this gas bubble out, and then you go back down for the next dive. And then we're back usually nowadays about 1:30, 1 o'clock. Usually it's about 2 dives. Rarely I do more than that. But for example, on Monday I have coming up, I have 2 courses. So I'm going to do 2 dives in the morning, come back in, switch tanks, crew, and guests, and go out again and do 2 more dives. So about an hour each dive. I've done up to an hour and 40 minutes. And then my husband and I sometimes go out just for ourselves, for our own pleasure.
That's cool.
And fun. And so we'll do maybe an hour and a half, 2. We've done 2 hours down there. We do 1 dive, 2 hours, and then come home.
Now, if let's say I got certified, would you recommend, or would you give the okay that I did this on my first time? Or is it like, nah, you probably should swim in the ocean a few times?
Absolutely, yes. So I've had students that got certified to come here just to do this.
Yeah,
and
I can
we
see
were
that.
heading out there. They had 4 certification dives underneath their belt. What I tell people is not the level of certification. I had open water students with 4 certification dives perform better than instructors. A lot of it has to do with what's here. So I tell my students, you don't have to tell me, but you need to be honest with yourself and know that you need to be comfortable with your mask skills, with your regulator skills, and with being surrounded by the water. The rest will take care of. But if you're a diver and some divers do that is afraid that if a tail touches the regulator, they're going to knock the regulator, and they do the dive like this. That is not the person I want down there. It doesn't matter the level. So it's not about your certification level. The depth is 45 feet, so it's super shallow. It's about, you need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
If the tail hits your mask and a little bit of water going into your mask, all I wanted you to do is say, excuse me, I'm just going to clear my mask. I had a girl yesterday. She kept smiling, the mask kept flooding. She'd be like, clearing the mask, resuming what she was doing. Clearing the mask, resuming what she was doing. So it's not about the certification. So absolutely, if you do your 4 certification dives and you're comfortable, I'll take care of you.
It's an experience of a lifetime.
It is. A lot of people have surfaced as saying that it has changed. A lot of people have taken life choices following what they learned, because it's not just about the sharks. The sharks are there being sharks. They do their thing. They respond to certain stimuli. If there's current, if there's no current, I know how to behave. A lot of my work is chipping away on the person that is next to me. I call myself the underwater psychologist. I have zero capability of reading a person on the surface because they can fool me with this. But underwater, when the sharks come in and surround you, there's none of this. And your body language is so instinctual and so natural. And so a lot of the work I do is about maybe chipping away little mental blocks that we have. Not only fears about sharks, but like personal insecurities. Things have happened, something that somebody told us, something that it sits there. It makes me feel that I have maybe to check all the boxes, and I work around that. And so people have told me that after this experience, they actually taken business decisions, life decisions. They've changed the way they actually view themselves for a better way, and actually have had better experiences in life afterwards. So it is a life-changing experience.
I can imagine. It's also probably many people just facing a fear too, right? And then overcoming that. And wow, I'm just trying to mentally put myself underwater with you. It's just like, what an experience.
It's slow, it's clear, it's hypnotizing. It's peaceful.
That's so cool.
That's what you want to picture.
That's so cool. I got to ask you, what is your most memorable experience underwater?
Where do I start? I would say the first time, and every time it happens, when one of my girls put her head in my lap. When there's that moment in which she says, I am aware, because they're aware, they're not in tonic immobility, they're completely aware. The eyes follows, and they say, I trust you. I will sit here and allow you to pet me. And there's that moment when they do that, where their body goes, relax.
Does petting them feel good? Because for a dog, you can tell it feels good, right? They get happy. Does it feel good?
I don't know, you need to ask them. But I think if it was, honestly, when I remove hooks, they run away. So when I pet them and they stay, I think there is an inherent feeling of good. Some people said, oh, maybe you're a cleaning station. It doesn't matter if somebody pet my head, like whatever, you're brushing my hair or just patting my head, it feels good. And I'll sit there. So I think the shark sits there. There's something nice about it. Definitely there's no stress, no threat. Because when there's a stress or threat, they run away. If somebody moves too fast around them, when I put them to sleep, let's say the videographer is very eager to take a video and they come in too fast, they'll move away. They'll swim off my lap because they'll feel that almost as if, ooh, what is coming in. So they're very aware. I do believe it is somewhat pleasurable.
Yeah, being a videographer for you would be absolutely incredible. I would love that so much. Is there an experience underwater or with a shark that you still would love to have that you haven't yet?
I don't know. I never thought about that. I don't live by a bucket list. I have zero bucket list. I do believe the bucket list has set us up for disappointment.
Good point.
I do believe that. May I have a dream of saying, oh, I would love to, or I have a dream of going and visiting Iceland, but that's just something I
I'm
had since I
going
was a
there in
teenager.
3 weeks.
Really?
Yes,
I'm gonna contact you back to let me know more about that. But
100%.
but I try not to have bucket lists like, oh, I must go and see this cave or I must go and do that. And that way I left my mind open to unique experience that maybe I would have not been able to
Mm,
pick
mm,
had I only gone laser focus on that. Mind you,
mm.
I had, laser focus on I'm gonna go and become a cave instructor. I need to do this to become a technical instructor. I really want a rebreather, but that's more professionally. But from an experience point of view, I am open to anything that might happen. So I never thought about, oh, I really, really love to experience this with a shark.
And it just falls in the same bucket, so this might be the same answer. But as far as like diving, is there a place in the world that you're like, ah, it'd be a really magical place to dive?
Not yet.
Iceland?
No, I want to go without diving. I want to experience the Iceland on the surface. There's
Mm.
enough between geyser, volcanoes, lava, hot baths, so landscapes. Diving. I want to find we already found two that were totally and completely new, unexplored cave entrances with 50 miles of caves and everything. But I want one with like crystal clear water and thousands of crystal decorations.
That sounds amazing.
Universe, are you listening? I need a crystal cave.
I'm thinking
Um,
New Zealand or something, maybe somewhere around
Here
there.
in the Bahamas, we discovered two brand new caves in 2020. My husband and I, during the lockdown, had a special police permit to drive around the island. And all we
Wow.
did was cave dive, and we laid 50 miles of cave lines in less than 6 months. Two brand new caves. Nobody had ever found their entrances. Nobody had ever laid line in them in 2020. So exploration is on our doorsteps. And that's
So
usually why I
cool.
don't look around the world. I know it's here. What I experienced with sharks here, that is unique. Every day going down and being able to collect that information, having that relationship with the sharks, you can't establish that for 2 weeks when you go somewhere else. That's the speed dating. It's
Right.
cute, you learn a little bit, you get a little bit of information, but it's not that relationship. And it's the same with the caves. We love being here because there is opportunity and exploration on our doorstep right here.
Are you using any new technology to discover any of this?
We're using a ton of technology.
Yeah.
It's changed very much from when I learned to cave dive in '96.
Sure.
We have, first of all, gear has very much improved from lights that last much longer or much smaller. To give an example, when I started, my light was about this big and this around and lasted 2 hours. Now I have a light canister that is smaller than this glass and lasts for 6 hours.
Wow.
LED obviously was a huge change.
Yeah.
We use a side mount rebreather created by KISS, which is like a rebreather that sits on your side. So usually if you look at side mount, they look like a little mini fridge on your back. This sits on your side and allows you to go exactly where you go with this minimal gear.
Oh, nice.
That is rebreathers allow you also to recycle your breath. So before, where I went in the back of the cave, I need to carry 6 tanks. Now I go on a rebreather and my bailout is half of that, so only
Oh,
3
wow.
tanks.
Wow.
Furthermore, if the rebreather works, you do not have to worry about your air consumption. So when you do an exploration, you keep bouncing in the same room, you don't have to abide to your gas pressure to come out. You have only to abide to time. So I can have a 4-hour time to search for something independent from my gas. And then from exploration point of view, we use obviously Google Earth. For that, drones as well to scout areas. And then to map, we moved from land mapping with the slate and the azimuth and the sextant into a tool called the Nemo, which was created by Sebastian Kister, and is a little tool that allows you to run along the line and speeds up your mapping by, I would say, 80% of the time that it took before. and then you come home and you put it into a software. You still have to learn how to use it. You still have to swim the cave and the lines, but you come home, put it in a software, and it creates a map with little
That's
minimal
incredible.
adjustments. So all of that has allowed us obviously to push the boundaries. But exploration, what I tell people, is still swimming where no other men have swum before. And it doesn't necessarily mean at the end of the line, but it's a mindset. And so it comes from first swimming the lines, understanding what you're doing, practicing your skills. Then you can venture into the areas where no one has ever been. And then we put all of this together, all these years, all this experience, all this technology. And that is where the positive results come.
You are a rock star. I hope you walk into bars in the Bahamas and they buy you drinks. Like, do they know you? Do people around the island know who you are?
Yeah, people around the island know me. I'm not much of a bar person, but if I walk in Port Lucaya, a lot of people will just, as I walk by, they'll go, "Oh, here comes the mother sharks. Oh, the shark lady. How are the sharks doing?" A lot of the people, let's say, not because I obviously do a lot with a lot of people, so obviously those know me, but let's say the people on the road, the Bahamians on the road, they're also very aware. It's kind of like, sometimes it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. They're like, "Oh, you do so much to bring attention to our island, and thank you for bringing attention to our island." So definitely I'm known on the road. I think maybe you asked me early on, what is my biggest achievement, is actually a pat on the back from the people here. It's one of the biggest achievements. It makes me so proud to be able to have contributed, and to be able to have change, and to be able to be welcome as part of this world.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. What is your mission, or biggest mission, moving forward?
More of the same, in a way. Like I said, the crystal cave, but expanding. And although I've had very good outreach so far into the educational world, I mean, I'm being invited in China as much as Singapore, but definitely reaching that, expanding that outreach capabilities, being able to do more of that. The other one for me will be definitely more research and exploration, which I still have to make a living. So, but that will be my ultimate goal. I've had a book in a folder for years and years and years. Everybody asks me, "What's your next goal?" And every year I write my next goal. It's like, I'm going to publish the book. So it's basically making my stone, the one I cast in the water, heavier and bigger, so the ripple effect is further and further away.
I look forward to reading that. Goal. Get that out there. I want to read it.
Okay.
I feel so privileged to be able to sit down and talk to you. Like, I'm just thinking, like, going to the Bahamas, just sitting by like a fire with you, and I could talk to you all night and ask you questions over and over again.
Let's do that.
Oh my God, I would.
Listen, somebody yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, the day before, we met in Birmingham on a dive show. She's from Denmark. My husband's from Denmark, and all of a sudden she comes up to me and she said, "I'm coming to the island, but I'm going out with someone else, and I feel embarrassed approaching you." And I'm like, "You're coming to Grand Bahama?" I'm like, "You coming to dive? I don't care who you're diving with. Good for you. You know, you're bringing business here, and we're all the same community." So we went and picked her up at the airport, and I said, "You're coming in a day after we land from Europe." And I said, "If you're happy to sit on the couch while we're walking around the apartment, cleaning, taking care of the dogs, taking care of business, chatting with you," she spent the day with us. And then we took her to her boat and boarded her boat. So yes, come and do it. We're very much an open place.
That's incredible.
You have to be loving dogs, because they have zero respect of your space. And you have to be loving mess, dust, and a lot of fur on the ground. But
we have 3 huskies, so yeah, fur's everywhere.
Don't tell that to my husband. This is his favorite dog ever.
I'll send you pictures afterwards. Yeah, they're incredible.
So if you want to come here and sit in the midst
of God, I would absolutely love to
and chat,
yes,
you're more than welcome.
Yes,
and then come and dive with us.
Oh my God, yes.
most of our guests want to meet also the messy life behind the scenes. They want to come into the apartment. They want to see the dogs, most. And they want to feel the entire thing. I honestly, what you see on social media is what you get. I
That's
don't
great.
doctor my pictures. I don't put on filters. If I said, somebody says, oh, the light shines dark shadows on your eyes, I'm kind of like, well, that's the light I have. And what I taught, what you see, how we live is what you're going to experience here.
All
There's
right.
no secrets behind the scenes.
Well, I'll message you. I'm all at this point in my life. I'm all about making life experiences and just saying yes to opportunities, because you just never know where it's going to lead you. And that's one of the reasons I reached out. I was like, you know what? Hopefully she
Yeah.
says yes, and she did. And I knew the conversation would be incredible. I can talk to you over and over again. We didn't even get to you growing up in Africa in the rainforest. I mean, I gotta have you back just talk about that.
I talk back about, we can do that with the caves and the exploration.
Oh my God!
But I mean,
yes.
even if you come with your partner, and none of you is a diver, we still have great experience. You can snorkel with turtles, you can snorkel with stingrays and baby lemon sharks. I mean, there's actually things that you can do. You don't even need to be a certified diver to take care on the water.
Well, how else can people reach you and find you and do these courses with you?
The best way is through my website or my email. My website is my www.CristinaZenato.com. Cristina without an H. So CristinaZenato.com, or on my email, czenato@gmail.com. And that is the best way.
Okay, I will link those in the show
If
notes.
you remember, we connected through social media, and then I said, please hop on to email.
Yeah, yep.
So if people reach me, my Instagram is Cristina Zenato. My Facebook is Cristina Zenato Underwater Explorer. My LinkedIn is Cristina Zenato. My Twitter is Cristina Zenato. I'm not hard to find. If people connect through social media to then want to information to come and visit, then I will say, hi, Kyle, thank you. Excellent to connect. Hop over to my email. Awesome. So they can reach me through all the medias, but eventually I'll transfer the information, the communication to email.
Makes sense. And yeah, for people listening to this, scroll on down in the show notes. I'll link everything. So if you want to shoot you a message, say hello, or at the very least, you have to see the pictures and watch the videos, because it's just absolutely incredible. It blows my mind every time I'm watching it. Do you realize that? I mean, has this gotten old? It doesn't sound like it's gotten old to you. Do you realize how freaking cool this is?
Yes and no. I actually have to joke. When I first met my husband, I was kind of concerned, and he was just like, what are you concerned about? And I'm kind of like, well, it's kind of a boring life. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I live on this island with the 3 dogs, and he goes, and all you do is dive with sharks in the caves. But for me, because that has been my life for so long, sometimes I do realize it's a privilege. I do realize it is the most beautiful privilege I have. I do not go around going, ah, do you see how cool that is? I don't do that. When people meet me, I'm a little bit, people meet me or recognize me, I'm like, you recognize me? I'm still surprised by that. I'm still shocked by people saying, oh, I've been following your work. And I'm like,
that's amazing.
And I get a little bit shy. Because to me, I'm a very normal person. I am a very normal person.
Yeah. With
29 years in the same island, I have dogs and do the same things. And
with a great passion.
Yes.
For sure. I had that conversation a couple weeks ago about the Northern Lights with someone in Iceland. I was like, do you just get bored? Because you see this all the time. Is it like, I'm just going to go to bed now? And no.
You can't get bored. No, that's not the part. I worry that people feel it's boring, because I'm super excited about it. I'm always happy. That's the reason I'm still here doing it. But no, I cannot get bored. People ask me, do you ever get bored to descend and see the same sharks? And I'm like, do you ever get bored to open the door and see your dogs?
No, that's a good point. Sometimes I get annoyed.
Yeah, they're a lot of work. They can be a lot of work. Absolutely. I have 3 rescues. So they're actually, they have health issues, skin issues, emotional issues. One pees and poops on the balcony every time we leave them alone and out of stress. We're gone a half hour running, and he's like, hey, I left your present on the balcony.
I like
But
what you stand for, though. I really do.
thank
Conservation,
you.
the animals, like your mission is great. Everything behind you and what you're doing is just wonderful. I can get behind it 100%. And I'm glad we can make this happen. And you never know. Hey, you said you invited me to Bahamas. You better watch out because I might be knocking on your door. So
Open invite. It is for you.
incredible. Incredible. Well, I might take you up on that. But Christina, anytime, come back anytime. You have a lot to talk about. We can talk more about sharks. Like I said, growing up in African rainforest, their caves, it's just absolutely incredible. But this has been a blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.